Hey guys, and I'm back with another video. This video is the court system and Freemasonry. Most judges are Freemasons, if you don't know. Freemasonry is, by definition, a secret society. It uses a secret system of communication to identify its members towards obtaining preferential treatment in business, politics, and every walk of life. It also utilizes this system within the courtroom to obtain favorable judgments that would not otherwise be rendered. In other words, it is a system used to corrupt the court system for its own personal advantage on a daily basis. Masonic members all know this and will use its reputation of preferential treatment for recruitment purposes. As a result, many members have joined for the express purpose of gaining access to this preferential treatment that enables them to circumvent the usual social norms of fair and equitable treatment. While some members join for the social and charitable aspects, most fall victim to this system. One of the dangerous aspects of Freemasonry is that good people can be compromised in their moral value system by association with a corrupt system of favoritism. The ultimate authority over the secret societies symbolized by the all-seeing eye of Lucifer. This is the same symbol and authority used on the U.S. $1 bill placed there by President Roosevelt, a 32nd degree Mason. Your duty to country. The Masonic oaths definitely interfere with the Mason's duty to his country. For example, in the third degree ritual, the candidate swears, "I will keep a worthy brother, Master Mason's secret inviolable, when communicated to or received by me as such, murder and treason excepted." In the Royal Arch degree of the York Rite, even that small qualification is summarily removed. The candidate swears that, "I will keep all the secrets of a companion Royal Arch Mason when communicated to me as such, or I, knowing them to be such, without exceptions." At this degree, the candidate also swears that, "I will not speak evil of a companion Royal Arch Mason behind his back nor before his face, but will appraise him of all approaching danger if in my power." Finally, in the Royal Arch degree, the candidate promises to employ a companion Royal Arch Mason in preference to any other person of equal qualifications. An officer of the court who knew of an arrest warrant sworn out against a brother Mason would have to warn him immediately so he could flee the jurisdiction. That was number one. Number two, a Mason who was told of a brother Mason's crimes, even including rape, robbery, or child abuse, would have to keep his knowledge of those crimes a secret, even in a court of law. 3. A Royal Arch Mason who knew of a companion Mason's being a murderer or a traitor would have to keep his knowledge a secret. 4. A Royal Arch Mason would be obligated to hire a companion Mason, even for sensitive or skilled professions, even if he didn't have nearly the qualifications required. Additionally, though not mentioned in the oaths, many a time Masons get a fairer trial in courts where a Masonic judge presides. A sizable majority of judges are Masons, and many attorneys are Masons as well. If a Mason appears in court against a non-Mason, all he has to do is give any number of obscure gestures or words to the judge, and the judge will be obligated to rule in his favor. No one in the court room will be the wiser, except another Mason, who would be forbidden from bringing the incident to light. It is easy to see how these elements of the oaths could very definitely be detrimental to the welfare of our nation. Masons, it is said, take care of their own, and they do to an extent which is frightening. Part of the fascination and the danger of Masonry is in its use of symbols and tokens, ritual gestures. The danger comes first from the fact that many of these things are occult, and secondly, they are used to perpetuate a good old boy system of favoritism in business and government. This is how Masons recognize one another without a word being spoken. Signs and tokens. Masons may identify themselves through cryptic words or gestures that are too numerous to catalog completely. However, it may be helpful to know some basic ones. First, Masons usually identify themselves by shaking hands. A pressure with the thumb on the space between the second and third knuckle of the other person's hand usually is sufficient to identify oneself as a Master Mason. When a handshake is not possible, as in a courtroom, a Mason might approach the bench by 3 upright regular steps, stepping off your left foot 1 full step, and bringing the heel of your right to the hollow of your left foot. Now step off with your right foot, and bring the heel of the left in the hollow of your right foot, then step off with your left foot, and bring both heels together. It sounds complicated, but any Masonic officer has done it 1,000 times, and can make it look as natural as can be. Another way is through phrases, either simple or complex, depending on the circumstances. For example, a Masonic defendant in court may say, "I was hoping to get a square deal, Your Honor," with just a shade of emphasis on the word square. He would also say he is on the level. These phrases are part of normal conversation, but with the right inflection, the other Mason understands. The same lines could be used in bargaining for a deal on a car or a home. Going to a jewelry store to buy gemstones, I would say to the manager, "I hear I can get a square deal here." He, if he didn't know me to be a Mason personally, might say, "I see that you are a traveling man." I would reply, "I am. I travel from west to east and from east to west again." He might ask, "Why did you leave the west and travel to the east?" I would respond, "In search of that which is lost." That would do it. He would know I was a Master Mason, and I could usually get all gems for his cost. That may seem harmless in a minor business transaction, but imagine what would happen if this was done in a court of law, and it is being done every day. Another phrase or gesture, which is only to be used in extreme situations, is the Grand Masonic hailing sign of distress. Our Masonic defendant in court might bury his head in his hands at some point and cry out, "O Lord, my God, is there no help for the widow's son?" Although this might sound a bit odd to the average listener, it could be understood as a cry of anguish. If a Masonic judge or juror heard it, they would be honor-bound by blood oath to acquit such a person, or at least fight for a hung jury. The gesture which accompanies this, or it can be given alone if necessary, is for the person to raise his arms over his head, almost as in a hands-up position, and then lowering them in 3 stages, pivoting the forearms at the elbow until they are perpendicular to the floor, palms down. Any Mason seeing that gesture or hearing the above words would be oath-bound to do anything possible to save the other Mason from danger, up to but not including the loss of his own life. In the Secret Teachings of the Masonic Lodge, written by John Ankerberg, host of the John Ankerberg Show, and John Weldon, we obtain further insights into the Masonic courtroom. The following information comes from the Secret Teachings of the Masonic Lodge. Finally, Fisher observes that Masons have dominated the U.S. Supreme Court from 1941 to 1971. From 1941 to 46, the ratio was 5-4. From 1949 to 1956, it was 8-1. From 1957 to 1967, it was 6-3. And from 1969 to 1971, it was again 5-4. He concludes that such influence may have contributed to the High Court's determination to move the nation away from an emphasis on Judeo-Christian values in public life, helping to further secularize society and sustain an epoch of revolutionary liberalism with far-reaching consequences. If Fisher's claims contain any substance, then addressing the religious views, content, and goals of Freemasonry is not an idle task, but is relevant to each of us. In the 13th degree of the Scottish Rite, the oath reads, I furthermore promise and swear to use every means in my power to contribute with all my might to the propagation of liberal ideas wherever I may be. Freemasonry has enormous influence in the world media and lists several founders, publishers, and editors of American papers who are Masons. The first duty of the Mason is to Masonry. When Masonic secrets of vital interest are at stake, the rights of Masonry are apparently placed above duty to country, family, church, and possibly even law. The Mentor's Manual of Masonry admits the obligation is the heart of the degree, for when it is assumed by the candidate, he has solemnly bound himself to Freemasonry and assumed certain duties which are his for the rest of his life. In his covenant with Masonry, the candidate solemnly promises that he will forever conceal and never reveal the secrets of Masonry. According to past master Edmund Ronayne, the first duty of the reader of this synopsis is to obey the edicts of his Grand Lodge. Right or wrong, his very existence as a Mason hangs upon obedience to the powers immediately set above him. The one unpardonable crime in a Mason is contumacy. I can't even pronounce this word here. Contumacy or disobedience. The ritual of the 17th degree of the Scottish Rite divulges that a Mason should not hesitate to spill his blood for the support of Masonry. This ritual discusses the symbolic meaning of certain items. The bows, arrows, and crown signify that the orders of this respectable council should be executed with as much quickness as the arrow flies from the bow, and be received with as much submission as if it came from a crowned head of a chief of a nation. The sword signifies that the council is always armed to punish the guilty. The skull is the image of a brother who is excluded from a lodge or council. The cloth stained with blood, that we should not hesitate to spill ours for the good of Masonry. Masons are sworn to protect fellow Masons, right or wrong. The Georgia Monitor teaches secrecy is an essential element of Freemasonry, and every Mason is bound by irrevocable ties to keep inviolate its private ceremonies, signs, words, the business of the lodge, and accepting treason and murder, never to divulge any secret that may be confided by a brother if accepted as such. The Tennessee Monitor states that a secret communication from a brother Mason, when communicated to and received by you specifically as such, are to be kept by you sacred and inviolable under all circumstances unless he voluntarily releases you. The Mason swears, I will obey all regular signs, summons, or tokens given, handed, sent, or thrown to me from the hand of a brother Master Mason, and a companion Royal Archmason secrets given me in charge as such, and I, knowing them to be such, shall remain as secure and inviolable in my breast as in his own, without exception. The moral problem with such standards should be obvious. Suppose a man is a witness in a criminal case involving anything but murder or treason. The one charged with the crime is a brother Master Mason. What if the witness receives a sign from the brother Mason charged with the crime? He is sworn to retain the secrets of his brother Mason. The Standard Masonic Monitor states, I furthermore promise and swear that I will assist a companion Royal Archmason when I see him engaged in any difficulty, and will espouse his cause so far as to extricate him from the same, whether he be right or wrong. The previous oath cited two exceptions, murder and treason, but here no exceptions are given. Apparently, the Mason is free to decide the issue for himself. Former Mason Ronayne believed that by its absolute stress upon secrecy, keeping of the oaths, and the belief in Masonry as the highest good, yeah, right, that's a joke. In effect, Masonry taught the following. Whenever you see any of our signs made by a brother Mason, and especially the grand hailing sign of distress, you must always be sure to obey them, even at the risk of your own life. If you're on a jury and the defendant is a Mason and makes the grand hailing sign, you must obey it. You must disagree with your brother jurors, if necessary, but you must be very sure not to bring the Mason guilty, for that would bring disgrace upon our order. It may be perjury, to be sure, to do this, but then you're fulfilling your obligation, and you know if you live up to your obligations, you'll be free from sin. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Not. You must conceal all the crimes of your brother Mason, except murder and treason, and these only at your own option. And should you be summoned as a witness against a brother Mason, be always sure to shield him. Prevaricate, don't tell the whole truth in this case. Keep his secrets. In other words, lie. Lie your fucking ass off, you lying fuck. Author Stephen Knight spent 7 months investigating Masonry in Britain. In spite of the disinformation tactics of several Freemasons, he developed an extensive network of contacts within Freemasonry. He was able to establish within a few months an entire network of moles and interviewed hundreds of Masons. There can be no doubt, he said, that many others have suffered because of Freemasonry, entering into areas of life where, according to all its publicly proclaimed principles, it should never intrude. The abuse of Freemasonry causes alarming miscarriages of justice. That's right. Freemasons are behind targeting people that are called targeted individuals, and they torture people with microwave frequencies. In Canada, it's Canadian Forces Station Leitrim and the Freemasons that control it that are torturing people with microwave frequencies. Knight provides a number of illustrations. He cites the police corruption in Scotland Yard exposed in 1974 and 1975. The problem was that Scotland Yard was heavily Masonic. And despite A10's, a special unit set up to weed out corruption, success in ridding the yard of suspect detectives, nearly 300 have been forced to resign by spring 1975. It was constantly obstructed in its attempts to obtain evidence solid enough to make charges stick. Even in cases of obvious criminality, fellow officers whose evidence was vital clammed up and obstinately refused to make statements or cooperate in any other way. Some would not speak at all. It rapidly became clear why. The honest men needed as witnesses were members of the same brotherhood as the bent officers. Many shared the same lodges. These Masons were only obeying the oaths they had sworn in Masonry. The candidate is told that Masonry is of divine origin. That's a load of horse shit. It's nothing but a bunch of criminals. The guide to the Royal Arch chapter asserts that the Mason owes his duty primarily to God. Oh, okay. That's a joke. Maybe you should read the 10 Commandments and follow them. But this is God as Masonry conceives him, which is really a duty to Masonry itself, because it is Masonry that principally represents God on earth. Yeah, more like a bunch of devils. Further, the candidate is told that the political power of the land, the king, is subordinate to the Masonic high priest. The institutions of political society teach us to consider the king as the chief of created beings, and that the first duty of his subjects is to obey his mandates. But the institutions of our sublime degrees, by placing the king in a situation subordinate to the high priest, teaches us that our duty to God, i.e. Masonry, is paramount to all other duties, and should ever claim the priority of our obedience to man. So these people, they want to see themselves as God, and they want to play God. So they're on a serious power trip. Perhaps this is why President Ulysses S. Grant once observed, all secret, oath-bound political parties are dangerous to any nation. President John Quincy Adams was more severe. After an impartial investigation of Freemasonry, he concluded in his address to the people of Massachusetts, I saw a code of Masonic legislation adapted to prostrate every principle of equal justice and to corrupt every sentiment of virtuous feeling in the soul of him who bound his allegiance to it. I saw the practice of common honesty, the kindness of Christian benevolence, even the abstinence of atrocious crimes, limited exclusively by lawless oaths and barbarous penalties, to the social relations between the brotherhood and the craft. I saw slander organized into a secret, widespread, and affiliated agency. I saw self-invoked imprecations of throats cut from ear to ear, and of hearts and vitals torn out, and cast off and hung on spires. I saw wine drunk from a human skull, with solemn invocation of all the sins of its owner upon the head of him who drank it. In 1869, Reverend Charles G. Finney, the world's greatest evangelist of his time, wrote a book titled The Character, Claims, and Practical Workings of Freemasonry. Reverend Finney had been a lawyer and a Mason prior to his conversion to Christianity to become a pastor. Possessing an intellectual mind with spiritual insights, he had unique qualities for the interpretation of his experiences in the Masonic Lodge. From all of these perspectives, Reverend Finney was able to conclude that Freemasonry was a vehicle for the introduction of great evil into our world. Having given warning with a proven insight, his book was republished in 1998. Although originally written in 1869, this book demonstrates that Masonic manipulation and the subversion of justice has not changed in the Masonic courtroom. The grand hailing sign of distress mentioned in this oath consists in raising both hands to heaven in the attitude of supplication. The words accompanying this sign are, "O Lord my God, is there no help for the widow's son?" But what is the thing promised in this part of a Master Mason's oath? Observe, the candidate swears, "Should I ever see that sign given, or hear the word accompanying it, in the person who gave it, appearing to be in distress, I will fly to his relief at the risk of my life, should there be a greater probability of saving his life than of losing my own." Observe, it matters not what is the cause of the distress in which a Master Mason may be. If he had committed a crime and is likely to be arrested, or has been arrested, if he is imprisoned, or likely to be imprisoned, if he is on trial in a court of justice and likely to be imprisoned, if he is on trial in a court of justice and likely to be convicted, and a Master Mason is on the bench as a judge, or on the jury or called as a witness, or is a Master Mason a sheriff and has the prisoner in custody, or is he a constable having charge of the jury to whom the case is to be submitted, or is he a prosecuting attorney appointed by the government to prosecute him for his crime and secure his conviction? In any of these cases, the prisoner giving the hand-hailing sign of distress binds, by a most solemn oath, the judge, juryman, sheriff, constable, witness, attorney, if a Master Mason, to seek to release him, at the hazard of his life. All who are acquainted with the practical results of this section of the Master's oath, as they appeared in the investigations connected with the murder of William Morgan, are aware that the Master Masons kept this oath inviolate when efforts were made to convict the kidnappers and murderers, insomuch that it was found impossible to execute the laws. Cases are reported as having repeatedly occurred in the administration of justice, where this hailing sign of distress has prevailed to rescue the guilty from the hand of justice. In another part of this oath, you will observe, the candidate swears, and he will apprise a brother Master Mason of approaching danger if within his power. This binds a Master Mason to give a criminal notice if he understands that he is about to be arrested. If the sheriff has a writ for the arrest of a brother Master Mason, this oath lays him under an obligation not to arrest him, but to give him notice, and if he does not keep out of the way, he shall be obliged to arrest him. If the magistrate who issued the writ is a Master Mason, his oath obliges him to give the criminal Master Mason warning, so that he may evade the execution of the writ. If a Master Mason is suspected of a crime, and his case comes before a justice of the peace who is a Master Mason, or before a grand jury upon which there is a Master Mason, or before a court or petite jury in which are master masons, if they keep inviolate their oath, it is impossible to reach the execution of the law. Furthermore, if there be master masons in the community who hear of the guilt and danger of a brother master mason, they are sworn to give him warning. It is no doubt for this reason that masons try to secure amongst themselves all the offices connected with the administration of justice. Yeah, like I've said many times, most of the cops are masons, and most of the lawyers and the judges. Yeah, like how are you supposed to get an honest, fair deal in court when all these guys are in a secret criminal club? It's like they're running the law, but they're lawless. The Royal Arch Degree. All Masons above the third or master's degree are sworn to keep inviolate the secrets of a brother, murder and treason excepted, up to the seventh or Royal Arch Degree. In the oath of this degree, the candidate, as we shall see, swears to keep all the secrets of a companion of this degree, murder and treason not excepted. All Masons of and above this degree are solemnly bound to do this. The same is true of all the points sworn to in this obligation, which we proceed to examine. So basically, when they first join, they say, okay, everything except murder and treason. And once you've been there for a while and you go up the degrees and they've corrupted you more, then they just say, yeah, nothing. The Royal Arch Degree is taken in a lodge called a chapter. A Mason of this degree is called a companion, while in the lower degrees, Masons address each other as brothers. After swearing to the same points contained in previously taken oaths, the kneeling candidate, with hands on the Holy Bible, proceeds. I furthermore promise and swear that I will aid and assist a companion Royal Arch Mason when engaged in any difficulty, and espouse his cause so far as to extricate him from the same, if within my power, whether he be right or wrong. Here, then, we have a class of men sworn, under most frightful penalties, to espouse the cause of a companion so far as to extricate him from any difficulty, to the extent of their power, whether he is right or wrong. How can such a man be safely entrusted with any office connected with the administration of the law? He means to abide by and perform this solemn oath, or he does not. If he does, will he not inevitably defeat the due execution of law? If entrusted with the office connected with it, suppose he is a magistrate, a sheriff, marshal, or constable, will he not be able to prevent the execution of justice if he does all within his power, as he is solemnly sworn to do? If on a jury, if sworn as a witness, how can he be trusted if he fulfills his Masonic vows? Answer, he can't. But what is the moral character of a man who espouses the cause and does all he can to rescue a criminal from the hands of justice? I answer, he is a partaker of his guilt. He is truly an accessory after the fact. This oath does not contemplate the professional services of an advocate employed to defend an accused person in a court of justice. But even in this case, an advocate has no right to defeat the due administration of justice and turn the criminal loose to prey upon society. When he does this, he sins both against God and society. It is his business to see that no injustice is done to the accused, to secure for him a fair and impartial trial, but not to rescue him if guilty. An advocate who would espouse the cause of a criminal so far as to extricate him from his difficulty, whether right or wrong, would deserve the execration of both God and man. But Freemasonry, on the contrary, does pledge its members by the most solemn oaths to aid each other in a manner that sets aside the rights of others. For example, they are sworn first in the master's degree to conceal each other's crimes, murder and treason only excepted. Second, in the Royal Arch Degree, murder and treason not accepted. In this same degree, they swear to endeavor to extricate each other, if involved in any difficulty, whether they are right or wrong. Third, they also swear to promote each other's political elevation in preference to anyone of equal qualifications who is not a Freemason. Fourth, to give each other the preference in business transactions. Decree of secret monitor. I furthermore promise and swear that I will caution a brother secret monitor by signs, word, or token whenever I see him doing or about to do anything contrary to his interest in buying or selling. I furthermore promise and swear that I will assist a brother secret monitor in preference to any other person by introducing him to business, by sending him custom, or in any other manner in which I can throw a penny in his way. They swear to represent all who violate their Masonic oaths as worthless vagabonds, and to send this character after them to ruin their business and their reputation wherever they may go, and be to the end of their lives. They also swear to seek the condign punishment of all such in the infliction of the penalties of their oaths upon them. They swear to seek their death. They sound like a bunch of fucking criminal terrorists. And they should have all their clubhouses seized. Freemasonry. In its workings, it is a constant wrong inflicted upon society. It is an incessant and widespread conspiracy for the concealment of crime, to obstruct the course of justice, and in many instances to persecute the innocent and let the wicked go free. To reform it, its ends and its means must both be reformed. It must cease to be exclusive and selfish. It must cease to promise aid in many forms in which it does promise it. I have said that it was more than an innocent mutual aid society. Its members are pledged to aid each other in concealing inequity, and in many ways that trample upon the rights of others. And it is because this society promises aid in so many ways and under so many circumstances that men unite themselves to it. They swear to conceal each other's crimes. This we have seen. This is a conspiracy against all good government in church and state. Is this not wicked? They swear to deliver a brother Royal Archmason out of any difficulty and to espouse his cause so far as to extricate him from the same, if in their power, whether he be right or wrong. Is not this wicked? How this oath must lead to the defeat of the execution of law. It has defeated the ends of justice often, as every intelligent Mason may and ought to know. They swear to give political preferment to a Mason, because he is a Mason, over one of equal qualifications who is not a Mason. This is swearing to be partial. But is it not wicked to be partial? Can an oath to be partial make partiality a virtue? By swearing to do wrong, can a man make it his duty and therefore right to do wrong? No, indeed. They swear to persecute all who violate Masonic oaths as long as they live, to ruin their reputation, derange their business, and, if they go from place to place, defile them with representations of being worthless vagabonds. Is not this a promise to do wickedly? Suppose those who violate Masonic oaths are enemies of Masonry, as well they may be, and as they ought to be. Is it right to seek in any way to ruin them? They swear to seek the death or condign punishment of all who violate Masonic oaths. This we have seen. Is it not murder in intention, and therefore really murder, whether they succeed or not? To be sure it is. They swear to seek revenge and to take vengeance on those who violate Masonic oaths, and to avenge the treason, as they call it, by the death of the traitor. This also we have seen. Now, is not this the perfection of wickedness? Ought not Masons to be put under bonds to keep the peace? See, they call people who betray their oaths traitors. But these people don't follow any laws and don't have any morals. They break the laws and violate the rights of innocent other people So the only traitors are Masons. Masons are the only people who can be traitors because they violate honest people's rights. They swear to support Freemasonry, an institution, as we have seen, that ought not to exist in any community. These are only some of the reasons for pronouncing the oaths of Freemasonry utterly unlawful. Refusing to renounce is adherence. Adherence makes them partakers of the crimes of Freemasons, partakers of other men's sins, because to adhere is to justify their oaths and the keeping and fulfillment of them, but to justify their crimes, the murder of Morgan, for example, is to partake of the guilt of his murderers. While a Mason adheres his word cannot be credited on questions relating to the secrets of Masonry, nor can his testimony be believed against one who has violated Masonic oaths, because he is sworn to ruin his reputation and to represent him as a worthless vagabond. An adhering Mason is a dangerous man in society. If he does as he is sworn to do, is he not a dangerous man? If he does not do what he is sworn to do, and yet does not renounce his oath, he is a dangerous man, because he violates an oath, the obligation of which he acknowledges. Is not he a dangerous man who disregards the solemnity of an oath? But perhaps he is convinced that he ought not to do what he has sworn to do, and therefore does not do it. But still he adheres in the sense that he will not confess and renounce the sinfulness of the obligation. Is not that a dangerous man who sees the wrong of an oath and will not renounce it? While he adheres to his Masonic oaths, he ought not to be trusted with the office of a magistrate. How should he, if he means to perform his Masonic vows? Nor, while he adheres, should he be trusted with the office of sheriff, marshal, or constable. If he intends to perform his Masonic vows, it is madness to trust him with an office in church or state. If and while he adheres, he ought not to be received as a witness or juror when a Freemason is a party. This has been ruled as law. Nor should he have power to appoint officers, as he will surely unduly favor Masons. Nor should he have the control of funds and the bestowment of governmental patronage. This he will certainly abuse, if he keeps and performs his vows. Nor should he be entrusted with the pardoning power. I wish it could be known in how many instances Freemasons have been pardoned and turned loose upon the public by governors and presidents who were Freemasons, and who were sworn to deliver them from any difficulty, whether right or wrong. Nor should he be a postmaster, as he will surely abuse his office to favor Masonry, and to persecute anti-Masons if he keeps his vows. Of this we are having abundant proof. While he adheres, his testimony against renouncing Masons ought not to be credited, because he has sworn to ruin their reputation and their business, and, until their death, to represent them to others as worthless vagabonds. Is a man's testimony against another worthy of credit, when he is thus sworn to hold him up to the world? It is the greatest injustice to credit the testimony of one who has taken and adheres to this oath if he testifies against a renouncing Mason. Those Masons who have taken and adhered to the vow to thus persecute and the vow to avenge the treason of violating Masonic oaths by the death of the traitor should be held to bail to keep the peace. If they intend to perform their vows, they are eminently dangerous persons and should be imprisoned or held to bail. Let no one say that this is harsh. Indeed, it is not. It is only common sense and common justice. Only remember what they are sworn to do, and that they intend to perform their vows. And they tell me is it safe and just that such men should be at large, and not even be put under bonds not to fulfill their vows. We must take the ground either that they will not fulfill their vows, or we must hold that they ought not to be at large without adequate bail. I am aware that some will say that this is a harsh and extreme conclusion, But pray, let me ask, do you not feel and say this because you do not believe that there is real danger of Freemasons doing what they have sworn to do? If they have sworn as Bernard and others represent, and if they really intend to fulfill their vows, and if you admit this, is my conclusion harsh and extreme? When no occasion arises calling for the fulfillment of their horrid oaths, they appear to be harmless and even good citizens. But let man read the history of the abduction and murder of Morgan, as found in Light of Masonry, and see how many men were engaged in it. Let him understand now this horrid murder was justified by the Grand Lodge and by many respectable citizens. Let him ponder the fact that the men engaged in that affair were accounted respectable and good citizens, that a number of them were men high in office and in public confidence, and that the conspiracy extended over a wide territory. And then let him say whether, if an occasion arise demanding their action, they will prove to be law-abiding citizens, or if they are not, or if they will not, as they have often done before, set at naught any law of God and man, and if need be, reach their end through the blood of their victim. But some will say that this is representing Freemasonry as infamous, and holding it up to the disgust, contempt, and indignation of mankind. I reply, I have not misrepresented it, as it is revealed in the books which I have been examining. Remember, it is with Masonry, as here revealed, that I have to deal. If a truthful representation of it excites the contempt, disgust, and indignation of the public toward it, if to rightly represent Freemasonry is to render it infamous, I cannot help it. The fault, if any, is not mine. I have revealed nothing. I have only called attention to facts of common concern to all honest citizens. Let the infamy rest where it belongs. While most people have heard of Freemasonry, few know much about it. As a secret society, it has secrets and a secret agenda that it attempts to keep hidden from the rest of society. When asked, most people will usually say that it's a men's club that engages in charity work within the community from time to time. This illusion is by careful design to gain public acceptability, attract community-minded individuals, and to help distance itself from closer inspection by having public officials as members. When questioned about being a secret society, Masonic authorities respond by saying, "We are not a secret society, but a society that has secrets." However, its very existence relies on maintaining secrecy to both the general public and its own members. Masons are not allowed to know the Masonic secrets and degrees above them. The actual true nature of Freemasonry does not begin to reveal itself until after the 3rd degree, and more notably around the 30th degree, to which very few Masons achieve in their Masonic careers. To become a Mason, the new initiate is required to profess a belief in a supreme deity by whatever name he may choose to call his own personal god of choice. Freemasonry therefore refers to its god in a generic sense as the great architect of the universe. However, around the 30th degree of the Scottish Rite, a secret begins to emerge as to the identity of the Masonic god, in which the Luciferian doctrine begins to come into increasing prominence. In the Royal Arch degree of the York Rite, the secret name of this god is identified as Jabulon or Jebulon. This name is a reference to the composite nature and the personality traits of the Masonic deity, who is also identified as Lucifer in the Scottish Rite. However, by whatever name chosen, it represents the god worshipped in Masonic ritual and the spiritual authority under which Freemasonry operates. The very first night that the new initiate enters the Masonic temple, he knows nothing of the rituals of initiation he will undergo. To be properly prepared for his first initiation process, he is stripped to his underwear, divested of all metal, including his wedding ring, and clothed in a loose-fitting pajama attire. One pant leg rolled up, one slipper on, one off, with the upper part of his attire left open to expose his breast. He is then placed in darkness by a blindfold or a hood called a hoodwink. Finally, a noose called a cable tow is hung around his neck. Having been properly prepared, he is then escorted by his conductor to the door entering the inner sanctum where the worshipful master presides. After the appropriate exchange, the door is opened, where a sword is applied to his naked breast. Upon further examination, he is allowed to proceed, being escorted in a circle called circumambulation by his conductor. After further ritual at different stations, he is led to an altar, where he is placed in a kneeling position to take his solemn oath. Finally, he completes his obligation by kissing the sacred book of his chosen religious beliefs to ensure that he is suitably bound by the Masonic oaths he has taken. The next 2 degrees in becoming a Master Mason build on the ritual content of the first. However, there is one final requirement prior to becoming a Master Mason. This ritual involves being symbolically murdered by a blow to the head and buried in either a coffin or some facsimile. After 2 failed attempts, the 3rd attempt succeeds, in which the Mason is raised back to life by the strong grip or the lion's paw to become ritually resurrected as a newly initiated Master Mason. Everything they're saying here just sounds like a cult. Like they brainwash you. This is all the same stuff they do in cults to brainwash you. They brainwash their cult members with all these rituals. Do this, do that. Get in the coffin, spank his ass with a paddle. Fuck. This is called brainwashing. If the above very brief description of Masonic initiation sounds bizarre, consider that every Mason in the world has undergone these rituals with some variation, according to the ritual from their jurisdiction. Witches, 2,000 years ago, were doing the same things that Masons are doing today. This statement may perhaps help to give some explanation to the bizarre rites of Freemasonry and what is being learned about Freemasonry and the judicial process. William Schnobelen gave examples of some of the basic gestures used by Masons to identify each other, and had made the comment that these cryptic words and gestures were too numerous to catalog completely. Recently, I came into contact with a retired RCMP officer who shared his discovery of a system used by Masons to interfere with justice in the courtroom. The following is a description of his story as he related to me. He says that while on active duty in the courtrooms of British Columbia, giving testimony, presenting evidence, and other related duties and being attached to the judicial system, that he had noticed a peculiar behavior over the years on numerous occasions. He described this peculiar behavior as what he termed ring tapping. He had also noticed that this ring tapping was predominantly unique to the defense lawyers. As he witnessed this unique behavior over the years, it had aroused his curiosity, partly because of the unusual success that these defense lawyers were able to obtain contrary to the evidence and the merits of the case. He told me that he witnessed criminals of all sorts being set free despite the dictate of law. With both his curiosity and concern as a police officer aroused, he began to observe more carefully whenever he saw this ring tapping in progress. What he soon discovered was that these rings all bore the square and compass insignia of Freemasonry. Following further investigation, with the thought that Freemasonry itself might be the influence at work in the courtroom, he was soon able to identify these ring-tapping lawyers as Masons. He was also able to match these lawyers with Masonic judges through the signal given by the ring tapping, which invariably resulted in a favorable judgment being rendered. His final conclusion was that these Masons were involved in a criminal abuse of the law through Masonic conspiracy within the courtroom that provided a mechanism for criminals to escape prosecution. The above, given by a retired RCMP officer, reflects the criminal activity within our courtrooms being perpetuated by a Masonic conspiracy. This officer dealt with cases brought before the courts. However, most Masons obtain Masonic intervention prior to this stage in the criminal justice system. In one particular case, I had spoken with a retired municipal police officer who had been involved in a drunk driving fatality several years prior. He told how Mr. JF had, after a lengthy celebration party, driven through a stop sign in Abbotsford, British Columbia, while highly intoxicated, and had killed a female motorist in the early hours of the morning. As the investigating officer, he aggressively recommended charges on 3 occasions prior to being verbally reprimanded and told to close his investigation, which resulted in no charges being laid. He asked me if I knew anything about this incident, to which I replied that I did. Mr. JF, as a federal employee, was also a Mason. Several years after this drunk driving fatality, I was able to provide this officer with an answer to one of his most troubling cases. In Surrey, British Columbia, that's close to where I live, Mr. GP, a drunk driver, kills 2 little girls. The Masonic judge in this case gives Mr. GP a fine and a suspended sentence under the assistance of his Masonic lawyer. Children in custody battles are awarded to parents under Masonic dictate, despite documented abuse. In Victoria, British Columbia, Mr. RS loses his property to Masonic interests and is denied legal recourse contrary to law by Masonic judges in this matter. The range of Masonic abuse in the courtroom has no known boundaries. In England, Masonic conspiracy with its criminal activity took on such rampant proportions that non-Masonic interests were forced to intervene and respond accordingly. There is no mistake. Every Masonic judge presiding over a matter is forced by his Masonic obligation to rule in favor of Masonic interests, the act of which becomes a criminal activity. This judge is therefore acting in a criminal capacity by legal definition, which under law requires a criminal investigation in order to protect the lawful rights of all members of society. Anything less invalidates our laws by tolerating a criminal element to occupy a position of power and influence with the express purpose of interfering with justice. Justice is seriously compromised in our courtrooms for as long as these Masonic judges are allowed to practice their criminal activities unchallenged. England is an example of one country forced to take action in the face of the blatant Masonic interference of justice in its courtrooms and elsewhere. Here in North America, the Mason goes into a Masonic courtroom assured of victory, no matter what his crime. Upon release, he is free to resume his criminal activity, be it murder, rape, child molestation, etc., without fear of legal and lawful restraint. How many innocent victims are there within society because Masonic judges set these criminals free to kill, rape, and maim again? Each victim compounds Masonic guilt in its victimization of the innocent on a daily basis throughout North America. Freemasonry believes and teaches its members that they are above the law of the land, that they are bound by oath to answer exclusively to their Masonic obligation as decreed by the Grand Lodge governing their jurisdiction. It rewards its members by way of organized corruption through a system of favoritism that assures preferential treatment throughout society. All levels of government are affected by its self-serving agenda designed to shield itself from investigation. In North America, the media has been unable to conduct investigative reporting under its influence. With its presence in the justice system, it has guaranteed itself protection from prosecution. In every way, Freemasonry is a blight upon the land as a vehicle for wanton corruption. In essence, it is, as Reverend Charles Finney describes, an evil scourge, inflicting and bringing about the worst of human character. The murder of Captain William Morgan demonstrates the effect of Freemasonry on the human character. However, as demonstrated by subsequent revelations surrounding this murder, most people will reevaluate their involvement and respond appropriately when in possession of the truth. It is interesting to note that Masons become victims themselves to the Masonic solemn oath that they bind themselves to under penalty of death and mutilation. Albert Pike, 33rd degree Mason, called the father of the modern Scottish Rite, wrote the following in his book, Morals and Dogma, on page 819. The blue degrees are but the outer court, or portico of the temple. Part of the symbols are displayed there to the initiate, but he is intentionally misled by false interpretations. Their true explications are reserved for the adepts, the princes of Masonry. As it is estimated that 75% of all Masons never progress beyond the first 3 degrees of the Blue Lodge or Master Mason degree. This applies to the vast majority of all Masons. Although these Masons therefore remain ignorant of the true nature of Freemasonry, they unwittingly assist in an evil agenda to infiltrate society, making it necessary to apply some restraint upon them for the good of society. Consider the judicial process in which the opposing party and the judge are Masonically affiliated. Picture in your mind this judge, blindfolded, with a black hood over his head, a noose around his neck, drawing his thumb across his throat, invoking a blood oath upon himself. And ask yourself if it's reasonable to believe that you can expect justice from this man. Okay, guys, that's the end of the video. Thanks for watching. Until next time, peace.